I started a review on the Scribbles That Matter journal just before they changed to a newer version. So I'm right onto this one and releasing it straight away. I'm Ruby from the Useful Journal. I do journal reviews. I have a website and this YouTube channel. Please check out my YouTube channel to see what else I've been up to. Today I am reviewing the Scribbles That Matter Iconic version, which is this one. The Scribbles That Matter Iconic version is the one that has the doodles on the cover. They also have a Pro version that is exactly the same except it has a plain cover. The company is based in the UK and they have a dedicated UK website as well as a dedicated US website. In other countries, they sell through Amazon. There is very little information about the company on their website. There is actually more on Amazon about the company. And then there are other details that you actually have to go to their Facebook to find out. So, very scattered approach to information. So, Iconic is actually a very appropriate name for this journal because it has become very well known for this doodle cover. The older version, which I have here, had a very similar cover, interestingly. Reverse direction, I don't know why, but the older version had a doodle cover as well, and I got the purple version then too. And the cover also had doodles. So I've bought another purple one because I love purple. The journals have a very distinctive presentation because they have contrasting elastics. As you can see, the colour is very bright. They have a big range of high colour, high contrast journals with bright covers and bright contrasting elastic. There's a couple of more muted colours like charcoal. The journals come in 4 sizes. This is the A5. They also come in B5, A6 and B6. The journals also come in 2 paperweights, and I'll talk about why a bit later, but they do also have a 120 GSM version, which I haven't tried. I am just commenting on the A5 160 GSM version today. When you receive your journal, you will have a box with a thin layer of plastic wrap over the box. When you open it, there is no more plastic, just the journal. It does come with a belly band, and then you get a free pen. I got the free pen with my last version as well. The pen hasn't changed, and I quite like it. I think the new version is actually more stylish because of the texture from the stamping on the cover. It's a nice journal to hold. It feels like it's a quality journal. I mentioned the free pen. I'll take that out for now. So it has a pen loop for said pen. It has the elastic, which I've mentioned, that comes with, the pen loop comes with a silver stud on the back cover to hold the pen loop in place. 2 ribbons. The ribbons are just long enough to get around the corner. Given that they're meant to be a bookmark and that's how you open your journal, they do need to be long enough to get around that corner. They're just long enough. The journal has a pocket in the rear. It comes with grid guide on a little paper ruler, a cardboard ruler that you can keep in your journal, which is quite a handy idea. The elastic is tight enough that it has imprinted slightly on the front and the back covers. Not necessarily a bad thing, because if it's loose enough that it doesn't imprint, then it's not going to hold your journal tightly closed. So I would suggest that that's not a huge problem. And finally, and this does bother me, and I'll be talking more about the binding in a minute, the journal's pages project past the edges of the cover. Now, as you use your journal more, those will push further out. So I'm not super happy about that. I like to have a few millimeters buffer between the edge of the pages and the cover, because then once you start filling your journal, the pages will still be inside your cover. It just means that they get dirty, they get roughed up. It's not great. It is a reflection of the binding. The journal has 10 signatures. They have been very poorly glued in this particular journal, enough so that I'm concerned that with a lot of use the pages might fall out, because quite a few pages the binding is actually exposed between the signatures. And the other thing that I'm really annoyed about in this journal is that they are glued unevenly. So that means that you might have the binding exposed at the bottom end of the page, and by the time you get to the top end of the page, the pages are lifted and glued further out, and that means that your dots are closer together at the bottom, at the top than they are at the bottom. It's something that needs to be addressed. I can't comment on durability because this is a new journal. There's been a couple of comments that have commented on the fact that the leatherette wears thin on the corners, and just generally not very happy with the quality of the cover. So remains to be seen. What I can do is, once I've used the journal, I can add a note. Another little thing I'm annoyed about is that the leatherette at the top of the spine was not pushed down into the spine far enough, and actually when you push it down it doesn't stay there, so that means it just sits up a bit funny at the top end of the spine, which I don't love. This journal has 160 GSM paper. The colour is quite white. It's very smooth. It feels coated. Doesn't necessarily mean it's good results with a fountain pen, but it does feel good to write on it with a fountain pen. Inside you do have lines for a return to sender, a key page, and there are 4 index pages, but they don't have headings. So there's no line saying return to sender, there's no line saying key page, there's no line saying index. This possibly has been done to give you a bit more freedom with how you use the pages, but doesn't make a huge difference because the box structure is what limits the use of the page. I think only alternative is to paste something over it if you don't need that many marked pages. There is also 2 pen test pages. One of the pen test pages is great, but the other pen test page is actually glued to the backing page, which means that it's really thick and doesn't actually test your pen in the circumstances in which it would be used in the journal, like on a single layer of paper. There is page numbering. The page 1 comes after the index pages. The actual numbered pages only go to 150 because they don't include the pen test and the index. While I'm on the page numbers, they are small and outside the grid. The dots are a standard mid-grey. There are 27 across, 39 on the length of the page, so that's pretty standard as well. The dots are consistently spaced from the edges and the middle, except on the pages where the signatures join together. There is, in the A5 journal, there is a middle mark in the centre of the page and on each edge of the page for the dot grid. That is different in the different size journals. Obviously, it depends on the number of dots. The alignment of the dots is very good. Most pages it is bang on level. There are a couple of pages, I think there was like 4 or 6 that they were quite out, like 1 to 2 millimeters out, but that was very rare, so I think you just wouldn't try and do a double page spread on those particular pages. Okay, so now on to the pen test. The results were very similar to the previous version of the journal. There's no bleed from anything, including watercolours. There is no ghosting, except from the Sharpie Ultrafine pen, which is an alcohol-based marker, so understandable. I would say it's actually even potentially improved a little bit, or maybe I was just lighter with my watercolour this time. But last time there was a very faint bleed through on the watercolour, and this time there isn't. But again, it may just be that I used less water this time. The watercolour doesn't cause any crinkle of the page, but it does change the texture of the paper on the back. The texture is just a little bit rougher, but I think once you had written on that page, you wouldn't notice it. I also did a test with Heavy Tombow, which is a water-based marker, and they're quite wet, and there was no ghosting or bleed from them either. And I also tested with an ink, and ink on a lot of paper will show through at least a little bit, and this didn't show at all. So paper pen test came up very well. It feels nice to write on with a fountain pen, but there was a tiny bit of feathering. I will happily use a feather pen in this journal. Fountain pen in this journal. The paper dries quickly, but there was a slight smudge using highlighter after ink, but there was no smudge after a couple of seconds with just sweeping your hand across the page, so not bad. Look, it's hard to get a whiteout that works well on white paper. They seem to be more aimed at your ivories than your whites, and so the best result was with the Jelly Roll pen. I'm going to have to hunt around for a whiteout that works on really white paper, but that just shows how white this paper is. The pencil erased with a small amount of shadow. So, moving on to sustainability. Scribbles That Matter didn't previously have any sustainability credentials, but it's something they've been moving on this year. So I have reviewed journals from 20 different companies, and only 5 of them have FSC paper, and that is Scribbles That Matter, Tuck Tea, Nuna, Paper Blanks, and Leuchtturm. There may be a couple of others, but if they are using it, they're certainly not telling anyone on their websites, so I may have missed it, but as far as I know, only 5 have that FSC rating. There are other environmental programs around now. Amazon have recently started a climate pledge friendly certification, and this is a step towards achieving their Climate Partner Certified badge, which shows on their Amazon profile. Now, under Amazon's program, companies assess their carbon footprint, they set an emissions reduction target, they implement the steps to reduce their emissions, they finance Amazon's climate partner programs, and then they have to communicate their participation in the program and what they've achieved. So this is very much focused on energy and climate emissions. So it is not quite as broad as the Cradle to Cradle program, but it is still fantastic that they've got involved in this. I will be keeping an eye on them to see whether they follow through, because of course at this stage they have just assessed their carbon footprint and pledged to do something. They haven't yet done it. They have only talked about this commitment on their Facebook page. There is no mention of it at all on their website.
It's a bit like them saying on their Amazon site that they will donate trees to One Tree Planted. There's no mention of that on their website, and they also don't say on Amazon how many trees they're going to donate in proportion to the amount you spend.
So hopefully they'll update their website soon. I'm always a bit skeptical when they do things like companies do things like this and don't talk about it, because why wouldn't you talk about it? I am really glad, however, that they are taking this step. It's a good move. What I don't like is the companies, I feel like they're a bit cheap, attempts to look like they're doing something about mental health. They had 2 posts on their Facebook page in the last year that kind of said, hey, let's think about mental health. Fine. It just feels like the company is trying to go, hey, we're concerned about this, we're doing something, when in fact they're actually doing nothing from what I can tell actively about it. So that kind of annoys me. They did, however, donate all their out of production journals, so vintage ones that are no longer being sold, to a home where the residents of the home can use them. So that was lovely. Good way to get rid of old stock. Yeah, so that's a good thing. Now we get on to Scribbles That Matter, and they sometimes feel like they just blunder around the internet and don't think about what they're doing or what they're saying. So they have been accused a couple of years ago of using user-generated content in their advertising and not paying or recognising the people that created it. If you read their privacy policy, they do say that if you give them anything on their pages anywhere that is user generated, then they've got the right to use it and they don't have to acknowledge you because in effect you've given it to them. However, they are using or have in the past used content that wasn't given to them. It's just been taken from people's socials. And that's not great. That's caused a bit of an upset. They kind of apologised, but not broadly. It was just on a limited number of pages. Didn't handle it well, unfortunately, and since then they did put out a request for content that they would pay for and recognise, so they've tried to rectify it. I really don't know what to think about them, whether there's intent behind it or whether they're just clumsy. It's hard to know. They also are the first to admit that they have been too quick to try and make changes to their journals just based on what customers want. They have chopped and changed things quite a lot. They had a 100 GSM journal in the past. They got rid of it completely to jump on the 160 GSM bandwagon. Customers got really upset because there were some that had been using their journals for some time. So then they've brought out a new 120 GSM journal to try and get those customers back. It feels like sometimes they don't have a strong vision, and they should, because it's a strong journal. It just feels like they're stumbling around a bit, jumping between what people want and what they think they should do, and it ends up upsetting people. There's no consistency, and it just leads to confusion and sometimes angst. And so I think if the company had a clearer strategy, then they might avoid some of that. If you get a Scribbles That Matter journal, you're going to be pretty happy. It's good quality paper. The journal feels nice, it looks nice. I love the bright colours. However, I'm pretty unhappy with the quality of the binding, and that definitely needs work because I'm not sure how well it's going to hold together in the long term. I'm really pleased that they have taken the step to get the FSC certification and that they are looking at sustainability and trying to reduce their footprint, their carbon footprint. That's fantastic. Really impressed because the paper industry is pretty dirty. So good stuff that they're trying to improve that. The price comes in a bit lower, but then you get less pages. So they end up being about mid-range in price. I don't think I would buy another one because I think there's a couple of other companies out there that have better quality journals. And if I was saving my pennies, I think there's actually some other brands that are actually cheaper. Yeah, they're kind of very middle of the range in a lot of ways. But they are one of the only ones outside Europe Central that are doing something about sustainability. So that might influence me a little bit. I'm going to give them an extra tick for that. So I hope this review was helpful, and give me a like and subscribe because there will be more reviews coming. And yeah, I hope I'll see you again soon. See ya.